HOA blocks black man's ranch with a fence. What he did next will leave you speechless. James stood at the edge of his ranch, fists clenched, heart racing. The sky above was a heavy grey, the kind that promised a storm. Just yesterday, the local Homeowners Association had delivered a letter that shook him to his core. They intended to build a fence that would cut him off from the land he had fought for, land passed down from generations. "Your cattle are a nuisance," it read. Just a few words that sent shockwaves through his chest. Unfounded complaints from neighbours who never cared to understand the value of his family's legacy. As he surveyed the lush green fields that rolled across the horizon, memories flooded back, each blade of grass a testament to his humble beginnings. He had faced challenges before, but this felt... "Did you hear what they're doing to James?" voiced an older farmer nearby, his brow furrowed. Others gathered, their expressions tense. Concern rippled through the small crowd. The pressure surged in James's chest like a vice grip, squeezing tighter. He felt their sympathy, but wondered if it would be enough. Would they rally behind him? Or would the unrelenting machinery of the HOA crush his legacy? The wind picked up, a low whisper against the cattle grazing nonchalantly. He opened his mouth to respond, but suddenly a figure appeared on the horizon. His estranged cousin Mia, striding with purpose. She was a firecracker, always ready to fight, and her unexpected arrival stirred something deep within him. "I heard about the HOA, James. I'm ready to help," she called. It felt like a spark ignited in his heart. Together, they could take on the world. But as they devised strategies late into the night, James couldn't shake the gnawing feeling of betrayal. Who could he really trust? Days turned into a tense blur. Rumours swirled about the HOA leadership. Hushed voices spoke of corruption, bribes, and hidden agendas. James found himself at the centre of what felt like a brewing storm. Just as he finally pieced together a plan to confront the HOA, a betrayal shattered his resolve. A trusted advisor, someone he had thought would stand by him, turned on him, not for revenge, but for fear. Fear of what the HOA could do. James' heart sank. The looming storm outside mirrored the turmoil inside. Could he withstand this pressure? Would he lose not just the ranch, but his very identity? The weight of it all felt unbearable. His family's history stood behind him like ghosts, watching, waiting, urging him to fight. But now, uncertainty clouded his vision. Hey, before we continue with this amazing story, I need to give you an important warning. Many subscribers have reported that YouTube removed their subscriptions without any notice. Take a quick look at the red button below to make sure you're still subscribed to the channel. I don't want you to miss any exclusive content that's coming up. And while you're here, hit that powerful like button. It helps me a lot with the algorithm. Oh, and tell me in the comments, from which city are you watching? I love getting to know every incredible person who's part of this community. Your participation makes all the difference. Let's interact. Jane's heart pounded in his chest, a drum of uncertainty echoing in the thick air. Mia paced, her worry morphing into determination. We can't let them win, James. We fight back, she urged. The fire in her eyes brim. Who could he trust anymore? Suddenly, a sound tore through the tension. A crash from the barn. Both James and Mia jumped, eyes wide with alarm. What was that? He whispered, fear gripping him tight. The two rushed towards the source, their boots fudging against the ground, every step laced with dread. As they turned the corner, they met an astonishing sight. The barn door lay ajar, swinging wildly in the sudden gust. But it was not the door that stirred their disbelief. Inside, amidst scattered feed and scattered tools, stood Barry McGregor. He was shaking, sweaty, eyes darting like a cornered animal, and beside him lay a fallen figure, crumpled and motionless. "Barry, what the hell are you doing here?" James shouted, his voice trembling between anger and horror. But before Barry could answer, he fell to the ground, panting, his breath coming out in sharp gasps. "He's dead!" was all he managed to choke out, pointing a quivering finger towards the floor. James' world tipped sideways. Who's dead?" he demanded, his stomach twisting into knots. "Charlie, your advisor. I found him like this," Barry stammered, panic colouring his words. The name hit James like a punch. Charlie had been his confidant, always giving sound advice. "He was at the meeting last night. I swear I didn't do anything." Mia stepped closer, her voice barely a whisper. "What do you mean? How did he—" Barry scrabbled back against the wall, eyes wild. "I was trying to warn him. I overheard them. The HOA. They planned to take your ranch no matter what. He wanted to confront them, but I never thought they—" His voice trailed off, eyes downcast like a child caught in a lie. James faltered, confusion swirling. "What do you mean, they planned?" "They bribed someone close," Barry stammered. "Someone you trust. They meant for Charlie to be the scapegoat. I thought they were just being bullies. I didn't think they'd kill him." A collective gasp swept through Mia and James. "Kill him?" James repeated in disbelief, a lump forming in his throat. Why would they? Before he could finish, the air crackled with tension. A figure loomed at the barn entrance, dark and shadowy. The three of them froze, eyes snapping to the intruder. It was another member of the HOA, arms crossed, a smug smile playing on his lips. "Looking for answers, James? You should have kept your nose out of our business," he said, voice low and menacing. The words hit like a blow. The facade of civility slipped. Everything he thought he knew crumbled in an instant. Was this truly about offence? Or was there something much darker, hidden beneath the surface? James felt the ground shift beneath him. The betrayal of Charlie, the threat of the HOA, all tangled into a vicious web. But one question burned in his mind, fierce and consuming. Who else was involved? As the figure stepped closer, the tension spiraled into a deafening silence. All eyes locked on him, the reality of their dire situation dawning heavier by the second. The storm outside was nothing compared to the whirlwind of chaos brewing within. "Now tell me, James," the intruder smirked, "are you ready for the truth?" And just like that, the stakes of this fight transformed, fracturing their reality, leaving them standing on the edge of something far more dangerous than a simple property dispute. The figure stepped closer, dark eyes gleaming with malice. "Now tell me, James," he sneered, Are you ready for the truth? Tension thickened in the air. James's heart raced, pounding against his ribcage like a trapped animal. He could feel Mia's fingers brush against his, a small comfort. But fear gripped him tight. What truth could this man possibly unveil? Why don't you enlighten us? Mia spat back, her voice steady despite the fear swirling in her chest. The man flashed a smug smile, but it faltered slightly at the edges. You think this is just about your little ranch? He chuckled, low and dark. This is bigger than you can imagine. James's breath hitched. He glanced at Mia, her face a mixture of confusion and fear mirroring his own turmoil. Bigger how? James managed to say, his voice shaking. He felt various eyes, the wide eyes of Barry and the terrified expressions of a couple of farmers now peering in from the barn's entrance, focused on him. It amplified his anxiety. With a sweeping motion, the man pulled out a thick envelope from his jacket. "Let me show you," he said, tossing it to the ground. It landed with a dull thud, spilling papers out like a secret waiting to be uncovered. That's a list of everyone who's involved in this beautiful little scheme. What scheme? James's voice rose, mingling with panic. Let's call it land redistribution for the betterment of the community. Or something like that. He laughed, a chilling sound. But really, it's about control. The tightness in James's chest tightened further. Was this man really implying what he thought? Control? How? I'm sure you'll find your adorable little ranch is just a stepping stone. A gateway! I mean, who needs a legacy when you can have a neighborhood of cookie-cutter houses? Mia took a step forward, eyes fiery. You're scaring him. What does this have to do with Charlie, with the HOA? But before the man could respond, another noise cut through the scene. A loud crash, followed by the unmistakable sound of glass shattering. Everyone jumped, hearts racing. The barn entrance burst open, and a figure stumbled in, breathless and wild-eyed. It was Charlie's brother, Paul. "They're coming! They're really coming!" he shouted, a mix of disbelief and raw panic in his voice. "What are you talking about?" James asked, confusion mixing with fear. "Those men! They've been waiting! They know Charlie! And they know you!" Paul stammered, collapsing against a stall. "They're going to take everything, James. They don't care about fences or noise complaints." The weight of Paul's words bore down on them all, turning the air icy. Could it really be this dire? But the man smirked, his eyes glimmering with satisfaction. "Too late, I'm afraid," he said softly. "Charlie is just the beginning. You're already in too deep. You just don't know it yet." Time seemed to freeze. James felt his skin crawl. Betrayal echoed throughout the barn. Charlie had been more than just an advisor. He was a pawn in a game none of them understood. James searched the room, sensing the change in energy, and then Mia's voice broke through the silence. "What do you mean? Tell us!" she yelled, desperation leaking into her words. The man leaned in closer, his voice a low whisper. "Maybe you should take a look at who's on that list, James. You'll find a name you weren't expecting." James felt a cold sweat sprout at the nape of his neck. Who could it be? His brain fired questions like a machine gun. The atmosphere felt charged, close to a breaking point, and just like that, before he could process another thought, a gunshot pierced the night, echoing through the darkness outside, shaking the barn's very foundation. "No!" James screamed, pulse racing, eyes darting toward the barn door. Something monumental was about to shift, and deep down he felt it wouldn't just affect him. It would unravel everything he thought he knew. The darkness pressed in, each second stretching into eternity. What else was hiding in the shadows? What horrifying truth was about to be revealed? The darkness pressed in, each second stretching into eternity. What else was hiding in the shadows? What horrifying truth was about to be revealed? A sudden gasp tore through the silence. Paul collapsed further against the stall, eyes wide with terror. "They're coming!" he yelled again. "They're really coming, and it's not just the HOA." James blinked, confused. "What do you mean, not just the HOA?" "Turn around!" Paul shouted, panic lacing his voice, urging them to look outside. Mia's heart raced, her skin prickling. They all turned, eyes darting toward the barn entrance, where the wind howled like a wild beast, carrying the sound of distant engines roaring closer. The shadows danced menacingly, silhouettes becoming clearer against the moonlight. A convoy of black SUVs rounded the corner, tires kicking up dust as they skidded to a halt. The men pouring out wore dark suits, each movement sharp and calculated, eyes scanning the area like wolves. "Who are they?" Mia breathed, her voice quaking with fear. "They're part of the bigger picture," the smug intruder smirked, with a sickening gleam in his eyes. "Didn't you get the memo? The HOA isn't just about a fence. This is a takeover. A restructuring. They're here to make sure you don't get in their way." As if on cue, the men began moving with purpose, heading straight for the barn, the air thick with tension. James's stomach churned. He felt the pressure mounting, tightening around his chest. He had to protect his land, his family's legacy. "They can't just take it!" he shouted, desperation welling in him. "Watch me!" the intruder laughed darkly. "You're drawing all the attention, James. That's what they want, a big show with you as the star." But everything was moving too fast. James's mind raced, searching for a way out. He glanced at Mia, her eyes wide with fear and resolute anger. A quick, fleeting thought struck him. Were they all too late to stop this? "Bribe someone close," Barry had said, his words echoing in James's mind. The pieces started to click. "Mia, wait!" But as he turned to her, the world shifted. A gunshot fired again, but this one rang clearer and sharper than the last. James swiveled, the sound piercing the night once more. Then shock splintered through him like icy shards. Mia staggered back, a hand clutching her stomach. Her eyes went wide. Shock chasing life out of her. She fell to her knees, gasping. "Mia!" James screamed, sprinting toward her, heart pounding like a drum in his ears. "No! No, no, no!" Fear clawed at him, tearing through his insides. He dropped to her side, frantically searching for what to do. The intruder's self-satisfied grin faded, morphed into surprise, then calculated intent. "This wasn't supposed to happen," he muttered. James's mind couldn't fathom the betrayal. What just happened? Mia, please, he begged, reaching for her. But she shook her head, tears pooling in her eyes. It's too late, James! The heaviness hung thick, smothering him. She collapsed against him, breaths shallow. Tell them the truth, she whispered, fingers slipping from his grip. Bitter cold snaked down James's spine. The world distorted, blurring, reforming into confusion. What truth? He asked, heart racing, desperation clawing for answers. But before he could process anything more, another figure emerged from the shadows. His own father, a ghost from his past, as if conjured by the situation itself. James, what have you done? Shock slammed into James, disbelief inching its way to every fibre of his being. What was going on? Was he stumbling into a nightmare? Mia, he cried, hands shaking as they pressed against her wound. Stay with me! Fury ignited in his chest, fueled by betrayal and desperation. He had to find the answer, had to uncover the secrets buried beneath this twisted plot. A pit of rage opened up inside him as he clenched his fists, driven now not only by love and loss, but by an urgent need for truth. The dark figure from the HOA stepped forward, wild determination in his eyes. It's time you find out who you can really trust, James. Prepare yourself for a reckoning. All focus shifted. The air buzzed with anticipation as James realized this was only the beginning. The truth was waiting, tangled in layers of deception, and it was coming for him. Would he be ready? And perhaps more terrifying, what would he discover about the family he thought he knew? And what length his father had gone to shield him from reality? The night stretched and twisted as everything he believed teetered on the brink of collapse. As James cradled Mia in his arms, the world around him faded. The sounds of approaching SUVs quieted to a whisper, drowning beneath the weight of his desperation. Her soft breaths faltered, and his heart raced with panic. Stay with me, please. The words tumbled out, each one a thread binding him to hope. Mia's eyes drifted. James, you have to find out the truth before it's too late. The life slowly faded from her voice, her fingers slipping from his grasp, becoming limp against his chest. No, he shouted, his voice cracking like thunder. Emotion roiled through his veins, bitter and potent. He pressed harder against the wound, praying for a miracle, praying for anything. But then another gunshot rang out, piercing the moment like a knife. Get down! Paul screamed, lunging toward the barn door as the air erupted with chaos. Shouts erupted from outside, a volley of voices rallying in savage anger. Each yell echoed like a battle cry, heavier than the last. James didn't think. He instinctively pulled Mia closer, shielding her with his body. Behind him, Barry trembled, eyes flicking between the barn door and the fallen form of Charlie's brother. The atmosphere was electric, crackling with fear and fury. But then something unexpected happened. From the shadows emerged a figure, one that twisted the very fabric of reality. James's heart sank as recognition struck like a lightning bolt. Dad, he breathed, disbelief crashing over him. His father stepped forward, A deep scowl etched across his face, eyes blazing with a fierce intensity. "James! You have to listen! Now is not the time for love or guilt!" "What do you mean?" James yelled, his despair morphing into confusion. "What's happening? Why are you here?" "I'm here because you're in danger," his father barked, voice trembling. "I didn't want you to get involved. I thought I could protect you from all of this." "But protect me from what?" Before his father could answer, the dark figure from the HOA grinned, stepping closer. Smug satisfaction etched on his features. "Ah, the puppet master himself! You didn't think your son would be privy to the real game, did you?" James's breath caught in his throat. Puppet master? What was he talking about? "Your father has been playing both sides all along," the figure taunted, his voice dripping with malice. "He's been feeding information to the HOA. Every complaint, every grudge, it's all his doing." Shock slammed into James, cold and disorienting. He staggered back, heart pounding in his ears. "Dad, is this true?" His father's shoulders slumped as the truth hung heavy in the air. "I didn't want it to come to this, James. I thought if I played their game, I could keep you safe. Yeah, it was wrong, but sometimes you have to choose the lesser evil." "No!" James cried, disbelief flooding through him. "You betrayed us! You betrayed her!" He looked down at Mia's still form, the light of hope flickering with every minute that passed. But then the darkness shifted. A swift movement caught James's eye, and suddenly the man from the HOA lunged toward him, eyes filled with manic rage. "No, you don't get to do this," he howled. The standoff exploded. A gunshot fired from the depths of the night. Clarity fractured as it all erupted into chaos. Time stretched and twisted. As James dove to the ground, the truth cascaded around him like shattered glass. Someone screamed, a cry filled with terror, but he couldn't focus. In the moment of madness, another figure rushed into the chaos, an agent of the law. "Freeze!" they yelled, startling the night and redirecting all focus. As the scene unfolded, James's mind raced. Everyone, all were participants, caught in a sinister web. Threads of connection everywhere, with his father's betrayal hanging in the air, and the fractured trust twisting around him, tighter than the storm cloud above. Everything changed. What will happen now, he wondered. What truths would be uncovered? Who else would betray him? The world seemed like it was collapsing under the weight of secrets and lies, echoing like gunshots into the night. In that moment of chaos, everything he thought he knew was slipping away. Who could he trust? And as the dust settled, he knew it was far from over. The battle lines blurred as they faced the dawning realization. The enemies were far closer than they ever imagined. James's heart thundered in his chest, his pulse racing like a stampede as he struggled to process the chaos around him. The empty shells of his thoughts flickered like faulty lights, casting darkness on what was unwinding. Mia lay lifeless in his arms, her warmth slipping through his fingers, and his father's betrayal cut deeper than any bullet. The dark figure from the HOA edged closer, eyes gleaming with malice, and the air crackled with tension. Everyone around him felt like shadows in a nightmare, blending into the confusion as fear wrapped around them like a heavy fog. James's throat tightened. He didn't know what to run from. His father, the HOA, the betrayal that clawed at his chest. What the hell is happening? James couldn't help but yell, desperation pouring from him like the rain outside. The figure merely chuckled, a low, sinister sound. He could feel the pulse of his heart in every corner of his body, a mixture of anger and despair enveloping him. What do you want? What are you going to do to us? But before an answer came, another gunshot shattered the night. This one rang out closer, reverberating through the barn like an ominous drumbeat. The sound vibrated in his bones, pulling everyone's attention. Paul gasped, eyes wide, and James turned just in time to see the door burst open again. But it wasn't another enemy. It was a woman storming in with fiery determination. She had wild, curly hair and fierce eyes that seemed to flicker with both fear and fury. "Get down!" she yelled, tossing herself into the line of fire without a moment's hesitation. James's shoulders dropped. He hadn't seen her in years. It was his sister, Lena. "Lena!" he managed as confusion mixed with an unexpected flicker of hope. "I couldn't just stand by, James. I came to help." She barely finished when a bullet ricocheted off the barn wall, sending splinters flying. The urgency snapped back immediately, and James shouted, "Are you insane? You shouldn't be here!" But she was already diving beside him, eyes scanning the room. "I know everything. It's not just about the ranch. It's beyond what we ever imagined. They want much more than land. And some of us are part of it." "What?" The world felt heavy with the weight of her words. James grabbed her arm, fear prickling beneath the surface. "What do you mean?" But just as she opened her mouth to explain, the dark figure from the HOA stepped forward, a broad smile creeping across his face. "Ah, the prodigal daughter returns. How perfect!" An electric shock ran through the room. Lena's eyes widened. "You don't know the half of it, do you?" she breathed, her voice shaky. And before anyone could react, she pulled back her jacket, revealing a badge, a police badge. "I've been undercover. I'm here to expose this entire operation," she blurted, eyes darting around like a trapped animal. The atmosphere shifted instantly. James's heart raced with confusion. "What operation? You can't mean the HOA?" Lena nodded, taking a deep breath as the reality settled. "Yes, the HOA is a front for something much darker than property disputes. They've been laundering money, selling land to criminals, and I've been trying to gather evidence to take them down." Shock swept like a wave through the barn. Barry and the farmers looked at each other in disbelief. You knew?" James choked, pain creeping in again. "All this time?" "I had to stay under the radar. I didn't want to drag you all into this. And Charlie, he was trying to warn us, James. He found out." Fear twisted in his gut, and everything around him felt like it was fracturing into millions of pieces. So Charlie wasn't just an advisor. He was... "A traitor? No, not like you think," Lena cut in, a sudden expression of anguish flashing across her face. "He was about to expose everything. That's why they took him out." The fight in James surged. This was more than just about him anymore. It was about survival, about truth, and a web of chaos that strangled everything sacred in his life. "Then we have to fight back," he shouted, fire igniting in his spirit. "We need to finish this." "But how?" He looked around, urgency filling the air. And just as she opened her mouth to respond, the door creaked again. But this time, it wasn't anyone burst through, but a figure James never expected to see. His mother! A spectre from his past he thought was lost forever. In stunned silence, they all stared as she stepped into the light, eyes glistening with something fierce. "I'm here to help, James," she said, voice stronger than the storm that raged outside. "What do you mean?" James's voice trembled. "Everything is more connected than you know." She took another step forward, each stride heavy with unspoken truths, shaking the very foundation of everything James believed. "What secrets have you two hidden?" Lena asked, astonishment flooding her voice. Time hung suspended in the air. Something monumental was about to unravel, and James felt the urgency escalate. What else lay beneath the surface? Would they uncover more betrayals? Or was this the moment where everything shifted? The barn felt alive. A ring of silent witnesses hanging on the cusp of a revelation that would change them forever. "James!" demanded, desperation clawing at him as the storm outside seemed to echo his mounting fear. But as they geared up for the truth, another loud crash echoed through the night, heralding a new set of shadows looming over them all, ready to overshadow the revelations yet to come. As James watched the shadows flicker in the barn, Lena stepped towards him, emotions swirling in her eyes. The storm outside battered against the wooden walls, a wild echo to the turmoil inside them. His mother's presence loomed like an unearthed memory, demanding to be acknowledged. "You all need to hear this," she urged, voice firm yet trembling. But before she could continue, something shifted in the air. A shadow darted across the barn entrance, and all heads turned toward it. The noise of heavy footsteps invaded the silence, growing louder, pounding like drums in their chests. James's heart raced. What now? Without warning, the barn door swung wide open again. A figure stood silhouetted. It was Barry, but he was different. Eyes wild, clothes disheveled. "We have to go! They're coming!" He shouted, bursting in with a desperate energy, panic etched in every feature. "What are you talking about?" James yelled, still processing the confusion swirling around him. "My brother! He's working for them! He's the one who's been feeding them information." Barry's revelation ripped through the stillness, tearing at the frayed edges of what they believed. The barn fell into a shocked silence. Questions flooded James's thoughts, a storm of doubt swirling. "What do you mean? How could you not know?" "He played us, James. He got close to Charlie and then to you. He wanted all of this to happen. It's all part of it." Barry staggered back, fighting for breath as he spoke. "Stop! Just stop!" Lena exclaimed, wide-eyed with disbelief. "You're saying your brother is the traitor?" "Just listen! I overheard them. They plan to take everything, and they're using him as the leverage." Barry's voice broke, the weight of betrayal crushing him. "If they can't buy what they want, they'll take it by force." The air felt dense, like a storm closing in. James squeezed his eyes shut, trying to process the implications. "Why would he do this?" he murmured, searching for answers but finding only chaos. But Barry spoke again, desperation clawing at his tone. "Because he wants to make a name for himself. He believes he'll be someone important if he helps flush us out." And then the room trembled. Not from the storm, but from the truth settling in. The faces around him wore expressions of horror, the reality crashing down like waves. Could they really trust anyone? Before he could voice another thought, a blinding flash lit up the night. A deafening bang followed, a crack of thunder, or a gunshot? It was impossible to tell. With a sudden rush, the barn door burst open again, a gust of wind crashing in, forcing them to steady themselves. But with it came something else. The unmistakable scent of smoke, acrid and heavy. "Fire!" someone yelled, pointing toward the corner of the barn, where flames began licking at the wooden beams. "Run!" James urged, panic flooding every inch of him. He grabbed Mia, pulling her close, but she was slipping away. He could feel it. Desperate tears blurred his vision. "Stay with me!" "I'm trying!" she gasped, her voice barely a whisper, as the smoke thickened and the air turned primal. Chaos erupted. A flurry of movement as everyone scrambled toward the exit, the barriers between them shattering in an instant. "Get out! Now!" James shouted, shoving past his mother and Lena. And then there was another loud crash, a straining splintering of wood, as the dark figure from the HOA surged through the door. "You really thought you could escape?" he sneered, smoke swirling around him like a dark shroud. "Get away from them!" Lena screamed, lunging forward as the flames danced dangerously close. But before she could make contact, something else happened. An unexpected figure blurred out from behind the man. "Enough!" Another voice cut through the chaos, commanding silence. A tall man stepped into the light, face obscured by shadows, but the voice powerful. "Barry won't be the scapegoat. None of you will." Each body froze, eyes wide, as they recognized the new arrival. Their former ally, now standing against them in a twist of fate so shocking, James felt his breath catch. "Charlie?" James uttered, disbelieving. "But you're supposed to be dead!" The barn was a furnace now, flames licking higher. The truth burned brighter than the fire. It consumed everything, leaving only questions in its wake. In this moment of mayhem, with betrayal echoing around them, they stood on the brink of everything they knew collapsing into ashes. Would they have the strength to survive the flames, physically and emotionally? Or had they lost much more than a simple ranch? Had they lost each other completely? The barn was ablaze, flames curling upward like tendrils of fury. James's heart raced as he faced Charlie, the once believed dead man standing before him, alive and steeped in secrets. But how? He struggled to form a thought. Charlie brushed off the question, eyes glittering with something darker. "You think it's just about the ranch? They needed a scapegoat. They needed to keep you distracted while they moved in," he said, urgency weaving through every word. Barry gasped, his eyes darting. "You said you were to be his ally." "Ally or pawn?" Charlie shot back, rage bubbling right beneath the surface. "I only played the game to survive." The tension dragged on like a taut string. James felt the smoke curling around them, thick and suffocating, swirling with confusion and grief. "We need to get out!" he shouted, pulling Mia closer, her stillness haunting him. "Everyone, follow me!" But just then, another thunderous gunshot shattered the air, sending shards of fear sprouting in every direction. A figure emerged from the chaos, eyes almost luminous in the dim light. It was Charlie's brother Paul, barreling into the heat of madness. "They're coming! We need to hide!" he cried out, panic clinging to each word, revealing the sheer dread consuming him. "Hide? From who?" James demanded, a lump in his throat, shifting his weight from foot to foot like a caged animal. "From everyone!" Paul yelled, his voice wavering. "It's not just the HOA, it's bigger. There are people with badges involved. People you think you can trust." The air grew tense. Lost trust loomed like a storm cloud. James could almost feel the betrayal crawling under his skin. His heart pounded, racing past every logic as he turned to his father. "What's going on? Is it true? Are you involved?" His father's face went pale, the absence of words echoing louder than any gunshot. The truth hung in the air, stinging like smoke. "James, I didn't know, I swear," he finally blurted out, desperation creaking in his voice like old wood. "Didn't know?" James yelled with a bitter laugh. "All this was happening right under our noses." But then the ground seemed to shake beneath them. The wall of the barn cracked wider, a beam shuddering loose from above. All eyes focused as something moved in the darkness. A large shadow darted across the expanse. And then the shocker hit like lightning. The barn door swung wide open once more, revealing a lineup of figures in dark uniforms, a sting of authority radiating off them. They held badges, faces obscured by night, but the tension spiraled, palpable and intense. "It's too late, James! Drop everything and surrender!" one of them shouted, voice booming through the chaos, illuminating chilling clarity. "You've been deemed a threat!" "Threat?" James whispered, terror gripping his heart until he could hardly breathe. "We're the victims!" But their faces were hard, unyielding. James's vision blurred as his world felt like it was folding in. Trust, bonds he thought he'd understood, were fraying under the weight of lies. "James!" Lena shouted through the fog. "Get out! Now!" But before he could react, a gun fired again. A blinding flash seared the night, and he felt heat brush against his skin. A figure crumpled next to him. "Charlie!" He fell hard, a grimace twisting his face. I didn't have a choice," he gasped, words breaking like shattered glass. "You're too late! It's not just about you anymore, it's—" And just like that, silence enveloped them. A sharp intake of breath that echoed in the void. Betrayed by trust, tangled in webs they couldn't escape. James stared helplessly, urgency crashing against despair. But inside him, something new sparked. The truth wasn't buried yet. The stakes were higher than he'd ever imagined. He needed to fight. But who remained to fight for? The flames roared, the gunshots faded, and a new storm rumbled in their midst. Each whispered betrayal, each glance shared became a wound they would carry forward into the unknown. They were standing at a precipice, where danger hung thick in the air, and every decision would hold the weight of devastating secrets yet to uncover. And just as darkness threatened to consume them, a voice echoed from the shadows. "You think this is over? It was intimate, chilling. It wasn't any of them." James turned slowly, and from the darkness emerged another. A figure, cloaked in mystery, face shrouded, barely lit by the flickering flames. His heart dropped. Suddenly, the whole game changed again. "Who are you?" he whispered. A smile broke free. "Someone who knows the real reason behind the chaos." And everything inside him froze. The night raged on. Curtains of smoke and echoes of betrayal tangled into something dark and unfathomable. The battle had only just begun. James felt the tension in the air shift as the figure stepped closer from the shadows. A chill crept along his spine, and for a moment he could only see the silhouette, the looming shape wrapped in darkness. "You think this is over?" the voice echoed, smooth like silk, cutting through the chaos. "Who are you?" James whispered, uncertainty gripping him tighter than the heat from the raging fire. Everyone seemed to hold their breath, waiting for the next move. "Someone who knows the real reason behind this chaos." The figure took a step into the faint light, revealing a face that sent shockwaves through the group. It was his long-thought-lost brother, Daniel. "Daniel?" James gasped, recoiling slightly. "You're alive?" "Of course I am," Daniel replied, a smirk playing at the corners of his lips. "But that's not what matters. What matters is everything you think you know is a lie." There was a collective gasp as everyone absorbed his words. Confusion swirling like the smoke, James's head spun. He had fought so hard to uncover truth after truth, all while seeking answers about the family he lost. "What do you mean? Explain yourself!" "I'm here to show you what's really been happening. The HOA isn't just some petty group of do-gooders turned villains. It's much deeper, James. Underneath all of this is a network that includes our own family," Daniel said, his eyes gleaming in the dim light. James's heart pounded. "What are you talking about? How could our family be part of this?" "Because it's been a plan since before you were born. A game of control. I was meant to play my role, keeping the secrets that needed to remain buried," Daniel continued, the sly smile fading, replaced by something more serious. "I've been pulling the strings from behind. And now you're a part of the bigger picture. That means you have something they want." "Like what?" James's breath quickened. "Everything your father built. This ranch. It's just the beginning. But you're the key to unlocking it." Suddenly the barn shuddered again. The fire crackled louder, and Paul shouted, "We need to move! They're coming in!" But Daniel's presence felt heavier now, anchoring them as questions blasted in James's mind like gunfire. Was this brother he thought lost a traitor? "No, you can't be serious. You're not here to help." "I'm here to save you." Daniel's voice rang with urgency, cutting through the noise surrounding them. "But we have to trust each other. There's no time." Murmurs broke out among the crowd, expressions shifting from shock to anger, doubt flickering like candle flames. Suddenly, the night exploded with sounds that froze their blood. Sirens blared in the distance, screaming against the backdrop of chaotic fire and panic. "They're here!" James yelled, fear gripping them all. And then a gunshot fired, echoing through the chaos, reverberating against the warped wood of the barn. Someone screamed. Everything went silent. A body dropped to the ground, and James turned to see Barry staggering back, clutching his shoulder where crimson blossomed on his shirt. "Barry!" Lena yelled, rushing towards him. He shot me!" Barry stammered, eyes wide with shock. A wave of terror crashed over James. Betrayal ignited anew. "Daniel, what are you involved in?" He spat, wild anger surging through him. The intertwined mess of chaos suddenly felt sharper, clearer. With one reveal, everything was on the table, and trust had unravelled quicker than he could comprehend. "You can't do this!" James spat, the lump in his throat growing heavier. As Barry collapsed, the barn felt suffocating, the walls pressing in with hidden secrets and buried fears. One devastating truth that ignited the eternal question: who would survive this night? Yet in the echoes of those telling moments, amid the scream of sirens and the flickering flame, a deeper realization dawned. Daniel had laid a trap within their very own blood. And the choices lay before them like a deadly dance, one that could change everything forever. The barn was a blazing furnace, flames reaching for the sky as smoke curled around them. James felt his heart race, time slowing as he stared at Daniel, the brother he never thought he'd see again. But behind the shock, a spark of anger ignite. "You were never meant to be part of this world, but now you are! You're caught in a web much bigger than you can fathom." "Enough of the riddles!" James shouted, his hands clenched into fists. Barry groaned on the ground, clutching his shoulder, but the urgency of the moment swept over them all. This isn't just about the ranch anymore. It's about survival. The air around them was thick with smoke and desperation. Paul was still shaking, fear painted on his face. "Do we trust him? Can we?" Suddenly, a voice cut through the haze, rough and furious. "You listen to me." It was their mother, stepping boldly into the chaos. "You've all been pawns in someone else's game. We need to save ourselves. Together." But before they could collect their thoughts, the noise crescendoed. A fierce roar erupted outside as multiple flashlights blazed against the barn walls. Sirens wailed, blending into a cacophony of impending doom. "Get down!" James screamed, eyes darting to the entrance. Then came another gunshot, and time staggered. The sound shattered the air, confusion and fear washing over every one of them. Brow furrowed, James scrambled to push Mia away from the growing chaos. But her eyes were glazed, breaths shallow. "Stay with me, Mia! Please, stay with me!" She squeezed his hand weakly, and in that fleeting moment, he felt the warmth of her love. But it flickered like the flames, threatening to fade away forever. Then everything went dark. A flash of light from outside turned into shadowy figures moving through the smoke. The law was here. The moment collided with panic, choking out every ounce of hope. "Hands in the air!" voices shouted. Ouncing off the barn walls, mirroring the chaos within, a swarm entered, their faces obscured, weapons drawn. James's heart pounded loudly, each beat reverberating with the dread of what could come next. "I won't let them take you," James yelled, desperation coursing through him. "James!" Daniel called, advancing cautiously. "Listen, we have to work together to escape. They'll take down everyone." But whether it was deception or a plea for safety, James struggled to weigh his options. "Stay back!" he shouted, raising his arms defensively. In split seconds, everything erupted. The officers surged forward, their voices rising, creating a wall of sound that pushed James backward. Fluid movements. Instincts kicked in. He bolted toward the barn exit, pulling Mia close but finding it hard to move. "No, we fight!" Lena yelled, stepping forward with newfound determination. "I refuse to let them take this from us." The fire crackled chaotically, illuminating their faces with a ghostly light as they slowly emerged from panic to unity, gathering together. For a brief moment, they all shared a look of solidarity, the fear blending with resolve. The officers staggered, and James saw it. An opening. "Now!" he yelled, rallying the remaining group. They surged forward, feathers of adrenaline igniting each of them. The chaos unfolded, a parade of confusion with officers scrambling, voices overlapping, and the barn's flames licking hungrily at the edges of sanity. Gasping for breath in the fresh air, they stumbled into the moonlit clearing. But as they turned, another figure emerged from the shadows. It was the very person they'd been trying to escape. Daniel smirked, but this time something had shifted in his demeanor. "You think escaping was that easy?" he hissed. "The games have only just begun. You'll wish you stayed." The tension crackled like electricity. Suddenly, the world felt heavy again. James's pulse raced. What did Daniel mean? The darkness stretched on, foreboding and filled with uncertainty. They stood there, side by side, hopes intertwined, staring at the predicaments ahead. Together, they might uncover truths buried deep, and faces of betrayal would emerge in the light. But as the sirens drew closer, James couldn't help but worry. Would they be safe this time? Had they won the battle, or just the first round? The questions loomed heavy, but hope flickered in the darkness. Together, they resolved to rise, even when shadows threatened to pull them back into the depths. You need to subscribe now! Don't miss the next exclusive stories coming your way. Smash that like button now to feed the algorithm and help us keep going. Flood the comments section with your reactions and theories about the ending. Instantly share this video with at least 5 friends who need to know this outcome. This is the moment to show your support. Don't wait another second to share.